Good morning, Jim Laird, live from Largo, Florida. It is a little bit of a rare rainy day here, um, as you can see by my change of background. We have an awning back here, which makes it really great for when it's really warm or rainy or yucky. I can still work outside, which is great. Right now, we're running a special on our fundamental wellness with coaching. You get 50% off the first month, and we just added weekly additional coaching calls with me. And then you get the 2 additional coaching calls, one with Dr. Stillman and myself, and then another uh, call, which is me basically that's on a Saturday, the third Saturday of every month. Basically me just talking strictly strength and conditioning, but all the weekly Q&As, we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. But it's super important for people to have consistency and accountability. If you truly want to make a change with where you're at, um, consistency, accountability is the key. And that's where most people struggle, is the consistently doing the small, consistent lifestyle things on a regular basis. Most people just do not act on the fundamentals and the basics. And that's why most people get in a bad place, and they really can't get out, because they don't do these daily things that really swing the dial dramatically over time. And so that's why we have our coaching programs, to help support you and help you get yourself into a better place. And so the topic for today: shift your mindset for better results. And this really comes a lot from my experience with struggles with my own health, or with business or relationships. And it was interesting. I was watching Jocko Willink talk about this, and whenever challenges were brought to him, whether in the military field or in business, he would always just say, good. Yeah, the radios are broken. Good. The attitude you have according to the challenges that you have. And I think I got this from Paul Chek, but when I got colitis, like in 2009 or 2010, I remember Paul talking about, he has one of his books is called uh, he has like these 4 books, like Dr. Diet, Dr. This, Dr. Quiet. And he would always say, like, illness is really your body's health challenges, is your body's way of telling you something isn't right. There's something not right in your diet. There's something not right in your environment. Usually the big thing is environment, because, I think one of the biggest factors today is that most people just live an indoor life. And if you look at the research, the literature, if you look at human history, when humans move to a more indoor lifestyle, they tend to get themselves in trouble. And the vast majority of Americans today literally live 95% of their day indoors, as people are moving to a more indoor lifestyle, more sedentary lifestyle. Blood pressure rates are skyrocketing around the world. Obesity rates in places like India, where they're starting to get more indoor, more tech oriented. Their diabetes rates, their just overall, obesity rates are going through the ceiling. So as we see people go from a more outdoor lifestyle to an indoor lifestyle, they end up having a lot of problems. So, when you start having these issues with health, if you change your mindset from, oh, woe is me, why is this happening to me? I've heard a lot of people say that, like, your genetics are the gun and the environment pulls the trigger. And basically, um, if your environment ends up pulling the trigger, and your genetics determine what disease or disorder or whatever you get. And so you need to basically, when you get in these times where you're in trouble, where you're sick, where you're struggling, you need to look at changing your environment. You need to look at your habits, what's going on in your life, managing stress, instead of looking at it like, this is terrible, this is awful. If you take the mindset, well, this is a great opportunity for me to, like, improve and get better. When I got colitis, I learned that I needed to manage my stress better. I wasn't taking enough time to rest. I wasn't sleeping enough. Was taking too many stimulants. And so that was a huge lesson for me, which then I was able to turn around and help more of my clients because I had a better understanding of how much, not getting enough sleep, not making time to rest, working too many hours, and trying to train really hard at the same time, the effects that has on your health. And luckily for me, it was colitis is something that I could get under control and manage. And it wasn't like some people would have had a heart attack or whatever else. So luckily for me, I was able to manage that and learn from it. And then later on, when I ended up getting a staph infection from a pedicure and I was having reoccurring infections, I learned that, you know, even though I wasn't working as much, I was resting more, I was managing my stress, I was eating better, I was taking better care of myself. I was living an indoor life. Essentially, I was starting the day at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I wasn't getting home till 9, and I literally wasn't outside during the day. And when I was outside, I was completely covered in clothing and I had sunglasses on. So my circadian rhythm was absolutely wrecked. I remember the first time I tried to go without sunglasses, and we deal with a lot of this in the course. And we talk to people about getting more light in their eyes, getting more light in their life. And their eyes hurt, when they go outside. And, I can relate to that because that's the way I was for at least a couple months. And now I'm the opposite. Now, I was at a friend's place the other day and, for an event, and was inside, and it was probably the most time I've spent inside in the last probably 5 years. And, I was in there for a couple hours and my eyes literally started to hurt from just the normal lights. And if I go to like Publix or Walmart, or I don't really go to Walmart much, but if I go somewhere in the evening and I don't take my blue blockers with me, my eyes literally hurt when I'm in the store, like at 6, 7 o'clock at night in with the artificial lights. So now I've inversed that. It's really, really interesting to see. But that taught me about circadian rhythm and the importance of the sun and how it runs your immune system. And I've been able to help other people because of it. And so our society has kind of pushed this narrative on us that you need to be happy all the time and things need to be going really smoothly. But you really don't. The human condition is you really don't learn unless there's adversity. You really don't learn and you really don't have the opportunity to help other people unless there's adversity. Um, People always talk about being happy, but happiness is not something it's not a state you can stay in, because if you were just constantly happy, um, you would never really challenge yourself to get anything done. So if you start looking at your challenges health wise or financially or relationship wise as opportunities to learn and to get better, like with my car accident, last year, um, it sucked. But if it wasn't for that accident, it I wouldn't have it wouldn't have pushed me to work with Dr. Stillman as much as I have in the last year, because I would have been comfortable doing what I was doing in the panhandle. That was starting to, the gym I was working at, that was starting to pick up a little bit. And I had some other things going that was picking up a little bit. So this kind of forced me to really focus on doing what I'm doing with Dr. Stillman now, which has turned out to be great. So, a lot of times in life when these things come up, instead of having the attitude of, oh, this sucks, this is terrible, most of the people that are ultra successful usually talk about how their failures set them up for the biggest successes, right? And you look at like people like Edison, who he failed at completing the light bulb like thousands and thousands of times. And so he figured out how not to do it like thousands of times to get that one time. You look at baseball players, that are in the Hall of Fame and they bat 300. I mean, that's like 30%, 70% failure rate. So a lot of people come to us with frustration And what it really needs to be is like, okay, what is my body trying to teach me? What is the God or the universe or whatever you believe in trying to teach me? But most people are just so caught up in our modern world and so distracted that they don't actually take the time to sit quietly and sit still long enough to actually learn from them, from themselves and from nature. And you know, I would argue that's by design. Um, we won't go down that rabbit hole today, but when you're constantly in this wheel of constant fear, constant news, constant, and I have to really manage this myself, is or else I can get overwhelmed. I have to step back and go, hey man, I need to be more of an observer here. I can't get pulled into this. Um, you're welcome, Amy. Amy says, thank you for the supportive and encouraging words I needed today. You're very welcome. And I hope that this us getting on here and chatting like this daily helps you maybe have a different perspective on things. And in really and honestly, in times when you are struggling, especially with the current state of where things are going and where they're about to go, having a different perspective and having someone else maybe word things and change things in a different way can be very helpful. Especially for me, I know a lot of, Dr. Jack Cruz helped me immensely. People like Rob Wolf, people like Paul Chek, um, listening to people like Jocko talk about adversity and leadership. I learned a lot from Jocko, especially when it comes to running businesses, because a lot of times it's very easy to put blame on other people, but you always got to look at yourself first. Like, okay, did this person fail to do the task because maybe I didn't communicate it well enough, or they didn't have what they needed to get the job done? And so when you're a leadership position, you have to kind of look at things from, okay, what did I do to not help this person be successful? Did I not provide enough training, enough information? So it's always good to have people in your life that have a lot of experience to kind of provide um, a different thinking and a different perspective on things, because most things, if you look back on your life, even though they might suck at the time, are really honestly there as an opportunity for you to get better. Right. And that's really what a lot of our group coaching is about building a relationship with you instead of selling you a 12-week, um, lose fat fast program, or, you know, 12 weeks to fix your this or fix your that, and selling you a bunch of supplements. It's really about building a relationship and getting to understand where you're at. And then maybe having someone like myself who has a lot of experience with dealing with all sorts of different life experiences is able to maybe give you a change in perspective, because really your attitude and your attitude and your outlook really has um, a profound effect on outcome, you know. So Amy asks, have you ever felt your positive thinking has led you down a rough path? Yeah, I think that's definitely can be the case, particularly if you surround yourself with people that enable you and tell you, like, and validate something that's not necessarily good for you. A lot of people in leadership positions will put people around them that are yes man, yes ma'am, yes person, hang me upside down. If I don't use the right descriptor, I'm sure it'll offend somebody somewhere. But a lot of times you might be going down the wrong path, and you might be surrounded by people that are just like, well, everything's gonna be okay. So there's a fine line there, because obviously you don't want to be running around being negative all the time, and having a positive perspective on things is very important. But that's where wisdom comes in, and discernment is when to basically embrace positive challenge, but then also to make sure that things that are negative and need to be changed, that you have the ability to look at it and go, yeah, I need to be really I need to be like, well, yeah, this is not a good behavior. I need to make better choices. And then looking at how you're going to do that. So, it's kind of being overly positive. They actually looked at this. Huberman actually had some really neat research about this. And I've experienced this in coaching people. You always want to like encourage effort. Like if you give everyone a sticker for just showing up, you're actually going to decrease drive and productivity over time. And you've seen that. I've seen that with coaching children where, everyone gets a sticker, everyone gets an award. It actually takes away from people making, like really getting after it. Right. But if you reward people for effort and basically how hard they work and you reward people accordingly, it actually increases effort. So this is where it becomes very interesting as a coach. I want to remain positive, but at the same time, I also don't want to give people the false sense of security that if they continue to do the habits that are basically wrecking them, that everything's going to be okay. It's kind of like if the ship is sinking and there's massive amounts of water coming in, I can't be worried about mopping the deck or cleaning the windows. I have to be very realistic to the crew that big leak in the front of the boat is the number one priority and everything else for now needs to go aside. So if I see someone who is under immense amount of stress and is not doing a very good job managing that stress, it's very important for me to basically tell them in a way that varies from person to person, because some people need a more of a mentorship type approach, a teaching approach, and other people just need to be like grabbed by the collar and shaken. And that's where learning how to read people, like I've had people, come to me at the gym, come to me for sit down orientation. And I've had, people where I've literally been very forceful and said, look, if you don't make a change in your lifestyle, you're in trouble. And it have been very, very blunt with them and even have made some people angry, and they needed that. And then I've had other people that were so broken that you could tell that they were just on the brink of like fragility, and they needed like more of a nurturing kind of mentorship. And I had one lady that came in with like multiple autoimmune diseases. And you could tell she was just broken. And I just put my arm around her and I said, look, you're in a really bad place. I get it. But here's the good news is you just need to start with a few of these things. And I think you're going to see things get much, much better for you, as opposed to one of the other guys that came in who was basically destroying himself with alcohol and everything else. And I gave him a very stern message. And he messaged me like, like 6 months or a year later. And he's like, thank you for doing that. Thank you for not telling me that, oh, it's okay. You're going to be all right. There's nothing wrong here. Cause he had a lot of people in his life that were telling him that. So a lot of that comes down to the person and reading the person. But, positivity, just like anything, right? Anything can be too much, right? Everything, whether it's positivity, like there are times negative emotions, being angry is appropriate and a great motivator. But if that's your only go-to, if anger is the only way you can motivate yourself, that becomes a problem. And if you're overly happy, no matter what's happening, you're so happy that you're just you're speeding towards a tree at 90 miles an hour and you're like, oh, this is great. And you don't look at what's happening and you just have a positive attitude as you hit the tree head on. Um, so there has to be balance there, and there has to be, just like anything else, there has to be the ability to be like, yeah, I should be upset about where I am. I'm not going to dwell on it, but I'm going to look at this as an opportunity to get better, because some people will get so negative and be so hateful to themselves, they actually make the problem worse. So there's a lot of nuance to this, right? Um, and a lot of people respond differently. Like like some people respond to really harsh coaching, which I really don't do that often, depending, if I'm dealing with like someone who's in the military, or I'm getting ready for like military type stuff or high level like athletics. I'm going to be a little more harsh with people. But if I'm dealing with, a 65, 70-year-old grandmother, I'm obviously not going to dress her down like I would dress down somebody who's getting ready for Navy SEAL boot camp. So there's ways to get people's attention without being overly abrasive. But I hope that answers your question, Amy. But yeah, I think being overly positive and not having the ability to assess the danger that you're in um, is just as dangerous as being so positive that you don't have a realistic view of what action needs to be taken. Is just as dangerous as overreacting and becoming too aggressively um, negative. So, like negativity has advantages. It's very, very motivating if you know there's going to be a bad consequence. But then, if that's the only way you're able to change, like with me, I had to learn how to like be more observant, be more present. And now I can look at my lifestyle and look at my habits and look and see the patterns that I get stuck in and realize, oh, I'm going down this path again. But I don't need to get colitis, or I don't need to get a staph infection in order for me to make changes, because I know the road that I'm going down and I know the consequences for going down that road. But in the past, I literally had to crash and burn uh in order for me to make a change. So I think a lot of that comes with maturity. Um, and a lot of that comes from being self-aware and not getting caught up. And I think with technology and with the phone and with just the busyness of modern life, I was listening to. I've been obviously watching a lot of stuff about Nicaragua lately because I'm going to be um, going down there here pretty soon, hopefully. Um, and it was interesting listening to this guy that runs a hostel, and they were talking to him about, a lot of Americans come to his hostel near Managua and stay with him. And he said, Americans, they have a hard time adjusting to our culture here because our culture is much more laid back. He's like, most Americans will only come here for 3 days, and they'll be in a hurry, and they'll be trying to cram and get as much stuff in as possible. They don't take the time to slow down and actually enjoy themselves. And he was like, that's not our culture here. Our culture is that of, we're more laid back. They kind of like mañana, right? It'll get done tomorrow, which has its place. And obviously there's things that need to be urgent. Like obviously if you're have a catastrophic injury, you don't need to be lackadaisical about getting to the emergency room to get your bleeding stopped or whatever. But Americans tend to stress out about things that really don't matter. Like I watched a lady the other day in a drive-through line. I think it was a coffee shop or something, and she was literally like, it was taking a little longer than normal, and she was literally hanging her head out the window and screaming at people over a cup of coffee. It's like, is that really something to like yell and scream and get yourself all worked up over? And that's one of the main reasons I want to go to a place like Nicaragua, because it's not this massive stress meat grinder that it is here in the United States. And there's a lot of people that are um, really struggling because our culture is so consumer driven and so stress driven that it causes a lot of people to break. So having the ability to look at a situation and see what requires urgent attention and what really doesn't matter. And most things in our life, n- you know, it's not really life or death if you don't get that thing done, right? So being able to prioritize and and look at the things that really need to be taken care of versus the things that are like, well, this really isn't that important. So And that comes with, once again, discernment. And that comes from being self-aware and being silent and being able to be observant with yourself. And that's something that most people either don't know how to do or have just lost touch with. So I hope that helps you. And I think, the biggest thing, I think the number one thing most people could do today to improve their sense of overall, I guess, well-being slash, not as, health in general would be to basically go out. I would challenge you to go to the park or go in your backyard and leave your phone and just sit quietly and listen to the birds, and just don't do anything but relax and listen to the birds, and do that for 10 or 15 minutes. When you're wound up, when you're stressed out, get out in nature and listen to nature. It has a tremendous calming effect. This isn't woo. This is like, there are studies that show that even having pictures of nature in your office reduce stress, reduce blood pressure. So what if you actually put yourself in nature? What is going to happen? What is going to be the side effect of that? And most people are so busy that they just don't take the time to do that. Like I would love to do a survey to see how many people in America have taken even 5 minutes to sit quietly by themselves in nature in the last 6 months. And I would argue to say that it's few and far between. That's why, like, our fundamental habit of 3 10-minute walks is so important, because it gets you out, it gets you outside, it gets your circadian rhythm in order. It helps you relax, especially if you're breathing through your nose and you're present, you're in the moment, you're not on your phone, you're not, multitasking, you're 100% in the moment, and you're present. I think if the average American took the time to do that 3 times a day, it would be a different society. Because when you're in a high stress state, in your emotional state, it's much easier to make stupid, dumb choices, right? And when you're present and when you're observant, it's easier to say, okay, how am I going to handle this situation? And most people just are not able to put themselves into that mode of being observer instead of being reactionary, because it's very easy to overreact when you're in this reactionary state. So there's some basic thoughts for you. Once again, if you want to interact with me and Dr. Stillman on a regular basis for a reasonable amount of money, we have our Fundamentals of Wellness course. Dr. Stillman, of course, has his Substack where he does a Monday masterclass and a weekly Q&A, if you're a premium member of that. And then, of course, every week we do a webinar. We're constantly adding to the Fundamentals of Wellness course with coaching. We're adding a specific blood pressure bonus chapter that will be in the course. And then we're going to add different topics. So, we're constantly adding to the strength and conditioning. I filmed a bunch of stuff the other night at a gym. I'm having a hard time finding gyms to do filming at. So it's one of the disadvantages of not having your own gym. It's something I was spoiled with for a long time. So we're constantly adding content to that course, or to the course itself, but to the course with coaching will have all the bonus products in it, which we're going to continue to update. And we'll also take suggestions from people on what they want to see in that. And then, of course, you get to interact with us on a regular basis where we can troubleshoot and problem solve for you. But if you want to get in on that weekly webinar, which is every Thursday at 10, so it's not like a sales webinar. We're actually going to teach you stuff. You'll be able to watch the replay after, but you won't have access to it like you will in the course. That's every Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern. And we send an email out on Monday with a link to the webinar. And we send an email out Wednesday night, which would be today. So tonight, we're doing a blood pressure secrets webinar where we get into detail on what you can do if you have high blood pressure. That email will go out tonight. And all you have to do to get on the email list is go to stillmanwellness.com. And that little pop-up comes up. Just put your email in that. That'll put you in our email list. And you'll get an email. You'll go into the fundamental. I'll be, completely transparent. You'll go into the fundamentals of wellness email responder where you'll get information about our fundamentals of wellness course. And then you'll be in our regular email sequence as well. Once that sequence goes through, we generally send out no more than 4 emails a week. We try not to bombard you, but at the same time, it is a business and we have to advertise what we're doing. So part of reward for putting up with that is you get weekly webinars. So appreciate your support. Please like this, share it with somebody who might find it insightful. Obviously, the algorithms are not very friendly to Dr. Stillman and I. Anybody that's really spreading a common sense approach is not really going with the mainstream narrative is obviously not pushed out there, to say it politely. Actually, I was talking with Rob Wolf a while back, and he's been looking at like his Google analytics over the last several years. And it even, like I think 5 or 6 years ago, it started to nosedive where, people would type in nutrition stuff and he was showing up at the top of the search, and now he doesn't show up at all. So that's why getting on people's email lists that you find helpful is so important, because they can't censor email as of yet. So that's really the last bastion of being able to get, uncensored information is things like email, things like Substack, because, we can send that out as of right now, and you're going to get that email, especially if it's in your contacts list. So get on that email list, and thank you for your support. I hope you guys have a great day. Make sure you take time today to get outside. Make sure you take time today to sit in silence, and make sure you start looking at things, adversity, challenges in your life as an opportunity to get better. And if you look at challenges in your life as teaching opportunities, even though they might suck at times, you're going to tend to have better outcomes if you have that attitude, as opposed to the why is me victim mentality. Have a great day.